G'day. It's time to down your unders. Review and dissection of content from some of the sharpest minds in the game. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Art of War. Down Under. Hello, my lovely denizens of the 41st millennium, and welcome to another exciting episode reviewing the Grotmas goodness. Another 3 detachments will be reviewed on this episode. This is the first segment, and to follow, we will have Richard Siegler with Adeptus Mechanicus getting reviewed there, and we'll also have lovely Joshua Campbell helping me review the Star Shatter BS detachment that came out for Necrons. But First off, we have a very auspicious guest, somebody who could have been on and should have been on my show for many a year and definitely has earned his way back onto my show now. He's the current #1 ranked Thousand Suns player in the world. You probably know him. His name is TJ Lanigan. Hello, my man.
Hey, how we doing, man? Thanks for having me on.
My absolute honor, my absolute pleasure, dude. I understand you have quite a few things content-wise that you do yourself, being an absolute lord of chaos. So feel free to tell people about that if they want some more Lanigan goodness after this segment.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, tell us about your podcast and stuff, brother, your personal content creation.
Sure, man. Yeah, so, big stuff first. I just recently joined Vanguard Tactics, so I'm going to be doing some content with them and some coaching hopefully in the future and things like that. So that's pretty awesome.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then I have a Patreon as well as a Facebook group and a Discord where I do like 2 videos a week. And then we do like a sit and chat and we basically talk about all things chaos. I try to keep us basically in the meta. So I talk about basically things that would impact us. Like when new codexes come out, I'll review them and say like where I think all the chaos books stand, different ways to play against them. And of course, now that Grotmas has come, which by the way, I think is one of Games Workshop's best marketing they've ever done. I review those and we go over those and I think what the list will look like and things like that. So
fan-freaking-tastic. And I'd hate to say that we're starting off at the bottom of the barrel as far as these 3 segments go, but we are starting off with the detachment that is, I suppose, one of the most maligned by in the public eye of the Grotmas detachment, and this is the Hexwarp Thrallband 4000 Suns. What's your hot takes on this, my dude?
So Listen, I get it, man. Like, as a Tsons player, like, I feel like my whole 10th edition has been Tsons. I feel like this is just not for us. It's just not for Tsons, right? Like, everything this detachment is trying to do, we already do. So what this basically shows us is, like, in the future, your codex will not do any of the things that you want it to do. Right? Like that's really auspicious. That's the auspicious part of this detachment. It's like everything that you're like, yeah, I do this already. Yeah, we do this already. Yeah, I do this. I already have that. Like now you know that Games Workshop usually is not in the business of doing redundancies. So like if you have a +1 to wound, it's usually like there's one way to get it and that's it.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
So I would be shocked if like all the things we're going to talk about when we get in this detachment, if Tsons did have another source of this anywhere else when the codex comes out. So
that has been what the hot word on the street is, that this is a future-proofed detachment rather than a detachment for right now.
Which is great.
Yeah, it is great. I could also say it as being a little frustrating for the player base, as in like so many other armies got a thing that they can just pick up and play right now. Why do we have to wait for hours because we've been stuck playing an index for, a year and a half, give or take, or whatever it is, 14 months. Why can't we have our thing now? Well, the only thing I can extrapolate is that Magnus is getting legended.
I just think he's going to do different things, which is fine because in the lore, he's not really like, I guess out of the 3 Primarchs, he's like the one that cares about his sons the most, but like, he doesn't really help them a lot. So right now he's such a force multiplier, but in the lore, he's kind of just like, he's the least dealer.
Yeah, he's the least likely one to be on the battlefield.
He's
the least likely in the fluff to be the Primarch who's like at the front of the lines doing all the things. He's much more about the machinations.
100%.
But anyway, let us jump in because despite there being so many nombo combos in this, as in combos that just don't work with the units that Tsons use, the rules aren't bad. So first up is flow of magic for the detachment rule. So certain areas of the battlefield, it's exactly the same as Canoptic Court, are within your army's flow of magic. Your deployment zone's always within your flow of magic. Or this is very similar also to the Shadow of Chaos for Chaos Demons. If you control half the objectives No Man's Land, that's your flow of magic now. If you control your opponent's deployment zone objective, their flow of magic now. And then each time a Thousand Suns model from your army makes a psychic attack, reroll a wound roll of 1, full stop. You just always get that. And if you're wholly within your army's flow of magic, each time a psychic attack is made, add +1 to the wound roll. So on face value, pretty good.
Yes. Yeah. If it was good. Literally if this was Grey Knights, yes.
Nuts.
Got it.
Nuts. Correct. I mean, if this was almost any other army, but for the fact is, for those who don't know, Magnus already gives you out a +1 to wound aura, and rubrics already have all the rerolls you're getting from this built into their data sheet already. So hence a lot of the nombo combos,
and not even psychic. Like they're just reroll your flamers, reroll your your Reaper Cannon, like everything. So
and it's really weird because outside of Thousand Suns, things that interact with the wound roll are actually pretty rare. They're actually quite rare, which is why everyone's losing their mind on the Oath of Moment change, because outside of the first, say 3 months, 4 months of a 10th edition, the wound roll interactions have only gone down and been more sparse. Whereas Tsons are pretty much the exclusive faction that just has more wound roll interaction than almost anything else, bar fate dice, miracle dice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that they're doubling down on that kind of being a bit of their identity.
Now, what I will say, which is the silver lining in this, is that this is each time your army, each time a Thousand Suns model from your army makes a psychic attack, reroll wound rolls 1. So this is also the melee phase. So that's just a slight tick up from the rubrics, because they do not. The rubrics data sheet is only in shooting. They get to reroll wound rolls of 1 or full rerolls to wound.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, first of the enhancements, Arcane Might. It will set you back 20 points. Thousand Suns model only. Still don't know why they need to tell us that in the Thousand Suns detachment, Thousand Suns model only, but game is going to game. Add 1 to the strength characteristic of psychic weapons equipped by models in the bearer's unit. Whilst the bearer's unit is wholly within your army's flow of magic, add 2 to the strength instead. That's good. That's a good enhancement. I mean, I don't know that you need it, but it's good, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, my first instinct is Scarab Gold Terminators, who have a pretty weird breakpoints on all their psychic guns, and then use the ritual to give all their guns the psychic Dudum Bubba, and then maybe they do something. Maybe they do something.
I wish. No, that psychic bolter stuff doesn't work. That's part of the other. That's a strat in the other detachment.
Oh, see. You're gonna have to keep me honest here, because I can't remember what's a ritual, what's a strat, what's this, what's that. Because in my mind, every time I play a Thousand Suns player, I just listen as they tell me all the things they're gonna do to me and nod. And
so the rituals are just like reroll failed save, make a strat cheaper, doom bolt, +2 AP to the stuff, and then move again. That's literally it. So everything else that full rerolls to hit, full rerolls to wound, indirect, +1 strength plus psychic bolters, that's all strats from the detachment, unfortunately.
Easy done. What is the next enhancement?
It's Empowered Manifestation. We got 20 points here, man. This is Thousand Suns model only. While the bearer unit is wholly within your army's flow of magic, add +6 to the range of psychic abilities that the bearer specifies a range, including rituals. And each time the model in the bearer's unit makes a hazards check from a psychic weapon, you can reroll the result.
So it's cool, yeah. A lot of T's and C's there. It has to specify a range, so none of the aura stuff gets increased. But where does this actually find a home? My first instinct, of course, is like, does this add 6 inches to my what are the chaplain dudes? Geez. They got the baby screamer on their base.
Infernal Masters.
The Infernal Masters, yeah. Does this add 6 inches to their flamer?
Man, they wrote this one really bad. I don't think so, because it's not.
I don't think so either.
So where this is actually good is in 2 spots. One is the Terminator Sorcerer, because the Terminator Sorcerer has an ability where he picks a unit at the start of the shooting phase, and he gives everybody reroll 1s to hit against that.
Yep.
And then the other place is the guy on disc. That's Exalted Sorcerer on disc. He does
the minus move.
Yeah. Yep. So other than that, I don't. The only thing I can think of is like improving rituals. Now, there was a weird thing on this where people were like, does it make the lone op from the sorcerer better? I don't think it works like that. That would be super cool. So right now it's, if you're further than 18 inches, you can't be shot as long as he's leading a squad. I don't think that works, but that would be very cool if it was a 12-inch lone op. That would be awesome. But other than that, I honestly, if you could put it on like a Hellbrute, that would be cool because he has like a refund mechanic. You know where he works on? The Demon Prince.
Okay.
Because the Demon Prince, I believe his power is his ability for psychic. Yeah. So his while friendly unit within 6 inches of the model has stealth. That gives you an extra 6 inches to the range of your psychic ability. So it's a 12-inch stealth instead of a 6-inch stealth.
That is not bad.
And then you can once per game, you can either give your Terminators precision or you can give your Rubrics precision with him as well. And that's a unit within 12 because that's also one of his psychic abilities.
Yeah. And to be clear, that's the one without wings, yeah?
That's the one without wings. The one with wings just gets the uppy downy, which doesn't do anything. Get affected.
All right, next up, Empiric Onslaught for 25 points. So on the Exy side and the most expensive of the enhancements, while the Bearer's unit is wholly within your army's flow of magic, add 3 to the attack characteristic of ranged weapons equipped by the Bearer. So you can get +3 shots. This is not bad. Yeah,
it's probably best on, I would either say your Infernal Master or it's best on the Coruscating Flame guy, which is your Terminator Sorcerer, because he's got an anti-monster, anti-vehicle devastating wounds like innately on his kit. So that's 6 shots basically instead of 3 that are 2 damage, -3. So that's pretty spicy.
Yeah, that is pretty good. 6 shots hitting on 3s at 4-3-2, and then anti-mortar, anti-vehicle dev wounds. That's nice. That is very nice. Every now and then that's going to pop a transport. Yep, 100%. I like it very much. What's the last one?
Knocolyptic Mantle. This is 1,007 model only. While the bearer unit is on the battlefield, is wholly within your army's flow of magic. Models in that unit cannot be selected to use any rituals.
And there's the issue, because up until that last sentence, this was like, this is good. He's always just going to be within the flow, as in always rolling ones, always +1 to wound, yada, yada, yada. But then you can't gas this guy up, double move, minus armor, anything like that.
Yeah. Kind of a dud, unfortunately. I don't know exactly what his use is, because I guess if you bring another unit in with them, like the Terminators, then you can use the other person's rituals to give that squad -2, so your bolters actually do something. He might just be like a one-off. Like you put this on like a shaman, and you you put him on a table edge. He comes in from reserves, and basically, he stands there, does that. The Terminators do that, and then the shaman is the one that comes in, just a lone shaman, no upgrade, and then hits that unit with a -2. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, so then you're paying 15 points for a enhancement that you then have to pay. How many points for the shaman?
16. So you're paying 75 points basically
to use your enhancement.
Also, you're losing. A common misconception a lot of people don't know is while the units are not on the table, you don't generate cabal points. So you're just throwing away
3 or 4
cabal points.
Yeah. For the first couple of turns, that's not great. So if you were to rank these as in takeability for the enhancements, what's your if you were playing this attachment, what's your auto take, and what's your next 2 options?
Empiric Onslaught is probably my auto take. That's number 1. That's the +3 shots. Well, I can find use for that no matter what.
Well, that's the one that most often has the best correlation to what you have right now, because this is the equivalent to the Vortex, Arcane Vortex. Just 100%. one thing I can chuck on a guy to gas him up and make him a problem. So that I agree.
Second is probably Arcane Might.
Yeah,
it's the psychic weapons powers up the psychic weapons. Now, it's weird. This is just a weird detachment, because the main issue with the detachment is you just don't have a lot of psychic weapons. I don't think Workshop knows that.
No, they don't. Because you're always paying a CP to make your weapons psychic, because your bolters and stuff like that just aren't off the cuff. Even your stuff like your Reaper chain cannons and things aren't psychic, right?
Yeah, no, they're not psychic. So the only things that are psychic are the sergeant carries a staff with him, and then he has his warp smite or force smite, which is his pistol weapon, one of his pistol weapons that he gets. And other than that, and then your characters have psychic weapons, and that it. So I mean, like Arcane Might seems okay because it adds +1 strength if you put it in a squad of like Terminators, because you're basically now getting the sergeant is getting +1 strength and the character gets +1 strength. But other than that, it doesn't really do a ton. So that's probably second. And then I guess last would be like in power manifestation, giving everybody stealth. Yeah. That's the best way I can see using it.
Mm. And I mean, like, stealth will be big versus some matchups. I mean, Tau and Guard aren't going to love just like, here's my bubble of stealth. But we know Thousand Suns die when they get shot, and stealth isn't going to save you, right? So I'm not. Yeah, you're right. I think that's a distant third, and then Noctilith Mantle is over the horizon, far away.
Yeah, unfortunate. It was so close, man. If it would have just said, nothing about the ritual thing, like then we're cooking with gas, because then we can bring bricks coming in, they double move, then the character inside that unit then makes the squad in front of them -2. So we're back to the old days where our enemies can come in from a flank and be like, turn off those guys' saves, and then just blast him with 8 flamers.
+1 to wound, rerolling to wound, flamers. Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
I honestly think that Noctilith Mantle didn't need to have that last sentence, the no rituals bit. That just kills it. All right, onto the stratagems. First up, Warding Hex, 1 CP in your command phase, 1 Psyker unit from your army that is in range of an objective marker you control, and if that objective marker is wholly within your army's flow of magic, you sticky the objective. So there's some T's and C's here that are key. It has to be, you have to control it in your command phase, so you can't really just like move on to it then sticky it. So it has to be, starting your turn on it, and then it has to be within your flow of magic. So you can always sticky your home objective, which is nice, just like just bang, sticky your home objective, cool, don't have to think about it now. But then the rest of it get a little bit more difficult. Is this strat any good?
Yeah, this is Yeah, so one of the big things about Tsons that I get talked to about all the time is like, do you have any way to make your objective sticky? Like, do your cultists do that? And I'm like, no. So giving us sticky is quite nice. Even with all those crazy restrictions you just said, I'll still take it.
Yeah.
Like, that's still a good strat. That's a solid strat, because that means I can use the sorcerer that we were talking about before that gives you loan out to basically string that guy out.
Correct.
Turn 1, you double move, you run, double move him. Magnus gives him +2 movement, right? So he gets on the objective on turn 2. On turn 2, you sticky that no man's land objective. I never have to worry about it again. If you want to try to push your resources into that, that's exactly where I want you, is right in front of me. So I'll totally take that all day.
What's the second strat?
Wrath of the Doomed. Okay. Fight phase. We love fight phase here. Just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, 1,000 Suns unit from your army that was selected as a target, and 1 or more of the attacking units attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your army is destroyed, if that model has not fought this phase, roll d6, adding 1 of the result. If the unit is wholly within your army's flow of magic on a 4-up, do not remove it to play. Then it can make its attack, and then it gets removed.
The one strat that does like less for Tsons than it does for any other army in the game. Hell, Tau. This
is like giving Tau. This is like giving Tau fight on. Now,
that's what I was about to say.
All I will say is, if this detachment is intended for the Codex, then we must be getting something that actually can fight. Maybe some new Zangor units, something that actually does something, because this does nothing. Now, I will also say here that this does not stipulate that it has to be a Psyker. So that's true. That's cool. There's at least some play in there. Maybe like your 20-man Zangor bricks. If with a shaman in there hitting on 3s, doing some good damage. That's not terrible, but man, oh man, like a 5-man rubric, you're not going to use this on.
Never say there. It makes no sense being in this book right now, which adds a lot to people's credence of, this is future proofed. Strands of Time is up next for 1 CP. It's in your movement phase. Just after 1,000 Sun Psychic unit from your army falls back, that Psychic unit to the end of the turn, unit will be eligible to shoot and declare a charge shoot or declare a charge. My bad. In a turn in which it fell back, they're not going to declare a charge. If your unit is wholly within your army's flow of magic when targeted with this stratagem, then you can do both. The charge bit is like, what are we doing here? If there's 1 guardsman left, sure. Or maybe 1 wound left on a rhino, sure. Anything else, you're not going to use that charge bit. But 1 CP, fall back and do stuff is good to have for 1,000 Suns.
Yeah.
All right, up next, Through the Veil is 1 CP. Start of the reinforcement steps of your movement phase. 1 rubric, Marines, or Scarab Cult Terminator unit from your army that is in Strat Reserve. Is this a 6-inch deep strike? It's a 6-inch deep strike, baby. If it is a Rubric Marine unit until the end of the phase, it has a deep strike ability. When unit set up on the battlefield using deep strike, if it's a Scarab Cult Terminator unit, it can be set up anywhere on the battlefield that is wholly within your army's flow of magic and more than 6 inches away. If it's a Scarab Cult Terminator selected with the stratagem, it is not eligible to declare a charge in this turn. So 6-inch deep strike with lots of T's and C's. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, how could you not like a 6-inch? I think the big thing that I like about it is that you can do some damage. Like, rubrics like to be close. This is like akin to every unit being able to have crystal. So I do like this ability. There are some requirements, and mostly the big problem that I find with this one is it's Scarab Cult Terminators wholly within your army's flow of magic. So it's really like, hey, rubrics, go anywhere you want. Terminators, you can only go where we say we already control, which is like a big, unfortunate thing.
Yeah, it's weird that this is the one you're supposed to want to take with Terminators, but it's the one that I think activates rubrics a lot more than it does Terminators, because Terminators can already deep strike into someone's backfield, then double move, and then but rubrics have no ability to get into the middle of the table from reserve. And, if you're in your army Shadow of Chaos, it's Shadow of Chaos. If you're in your army Shadow of Chaos, your rubrics will deep strike and absolutely smoke some people because you'll have +1 to wound because you have to. So, yeah, I think this is unnecessarily laden with terms and conditions. But apart from that, it could be useful.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, I like it. But, I mean, yeah.
What's the next one?
Scouring Warp Flame. It's your shooting phase, 1,000 Sun Psyker unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot and is wholly within your army's flow of magic until the end of the phase. Ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit have ignores cover ability. After this unit has shot, select one of your unit, hit by one or more of those attacks until the end of the phase. Models in that unit cannot have the benefit of cover.
This is cute.
It would be so cute if our entire army didn't already ignore cover.
Because you're the flamers.
Not bolters. Yeah. Now, what I will say is it's nice because you can shoot one flamer at something that is going to get cover with Magnus, and then Magnus can then shoot this unit, and then you're like, no cover for you. It's still -2, -1.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there could be a case here where, a lot of people have already talked about the fact that they think this is trying to lead you more down the Terminator route than the Rubric route. And I think that makes sense. Like, one unit of Rubrics maybe deep striking on with the previous strat to, 1 CP, to strip cover so that your Scarab Cults get to dunk. But you could just deep strike the Scarabs anyway, spend the 1 CP you were going to spend on the Rubrics and just give them ignores cover and not need to strip cover. The only other one that I think of is just a unit of Rubrics stripping cover if you decide to take Predators or something like that.
Yeah, I will say that the Infernal Masters, weirdly enough, their psychic attack is not something that ignores cover.
Correct.
So that is at least something that, like, if you use it, that they're going to get hit by the -2 and there's nothing they can do about it. Yeah, that's cool. Again, not super helpful right this second. Maybe if Bolters had a better profile or did more things, I'd be more enticed to play this.
Agreed. Last one is Kaleidoscopic Tempest. Cool name. 1 CP, it's in your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy has selected its targets. 1,000 Sun Psyker unit that was selected as the target. Until the end of the phase, your unit has the stealth ability, and if your unit is wholly within your army's flow of magic, each time attack targets your unit has the benefit of cover. So 1 CP, stealth and cover in the open is where I'm reading this, because you're never going to use this if you are if you're wholly within cover. You should not be getting shot. So this is like, I had to throw something in the middle of the table for area denial, and I've got a feeling they didn't really put out enough to guarantee this kill. So I'm 1 CP going to make it awkward for them, is what I read.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate because, like, we lose so much of the defensive from the first detachment.
Correct.
0 out damage is like, I don't think you have enough to kill this unit. So what if I just 0 out the damage? This is that.
Yeah,
just a word. Like, we have that at home, guys. I'm like, no, we don't. We have cover / stealth, whatever you want to call this.
Well, so this detachment, and that is the end of the detachment. That's the last of the stratagems, and this stratagem really suffers from the fact that the index. So this detachment suffers from the fact that the index detachment for Thousand Suns was pretty much the best index detachment. It was
I've been singing their praises for. I think we can all agree either this or the Eldar on the either this
release.
Eldar or GSD on the jump were the
Yeah.
best 3 detachments in the game.
Yeah, correct. And I mean, Tsons has taken 12 months of consistent nerfs to get under control.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's just a testament to the strength of that index attachment. The index attachment is so well-rounded, so dynamic, and does everything. Whereas this one is trying to do things you don't need to do. Why the hell am I playing Tsons planning to fight on death? Why the hell am I playing Tsons planning to fall back and charge? Why the hell am I playing Tsons trying to ignore cover? It's like we said, this thing is like 50% things that do not interact with the way that Tsons play right now.
Right.
And that's kind of the downfall of it. It's like half a detachment right now.
Yep. No, makes sense. I mean, that's definitely unfortunately, like I think this detachment would be great. If we would have seen this one first, I'd be like, oh, cool. I guess like that's not even true because like Magnus does what this detachment does by himself, and so do the rubrics. I guess if I saw this in the codex whenever that comes out, I think I'd be like, oh, okay. Like I can see me using whatever becomes of my rubrics and whatever becomes of Magnus, you know. But like I think seeing it now was kind of just a letdown. I think we probably would have been better with like no detachment in Grotmas and just be like, it'll be cool for later. I promise. I promise this will get some play when the codex actually comes out. Hopefully sometime next year.
And those people sitting around still saying Magnus did nothing wrong. Well, Magnus invalidated a detachment. He did at least one thing wrong.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, say what you will about Magnus. He's like literally top 3 best units in the game, and has been the entire edition. But top 3 single best models in the game. There are so few other single models that will legitimately just win you a game. There's so few. And yeah, Magnus is one of them. Doesn't need an attached unit, doesn't need this. He can literally just dominate and win by himself.
I mean, you can secret mission with him, you know,
correct.
But the amount of the power of Magnus being able to shoot 2 things, kill 2 things, charge another thing, then seal an objective because he's OC6, and then secret mission at the end of the game has won me plenty a game before.
You're correct. All right, my dude. So now we have come to the ratings system. We have 2 ratings upon which we measure our detachments. The first one is 1 to 10 with how happy you are and how happy do you believe Thousand Suns players are going to be with this detachment. So 1 is obviously this is horrible. We're never going to play it, yada, yada, yada. And 10 is this is the best thing we've seen sliced bread. This is what we're going to play evermore. What do you give this out of 10?
It's like a shadow number because the number doesn't exist until I see the codex. So I'll have to give this somewhere in the low, like 3 to 4, because it's not like without seeing the codex, I don't know what it does. I can tell you that like if we lose +1 to wound on Magnus, having Magnus have now a detachment, whatever Magnus does now, plus now I can play old Magnus basically with +1 to wound. That could be really strong.
Yeah, you could just see this as should Magnus's data sheet change, you could just see this as old Magnus at home, and which would be just fine.
Like so, that's cool. So so I think that's fine. So 3, 4.
Yeah, on the same.
As far as people were pretty upset about this. I think Thousand Suns players need to relax until we get a book. I'm right there with you. Am I tired of playing the same list? But like, don't fix it if it's not broken. Let's just wait and see what happens, you know? So I think, you know, you should just be all right. We'll be all right for a little while. No more nerfs, please.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they need any more nerfs. All right, so if you, and this is going to be hard to do because I don't believe anyone's going to play this detachment anytime soon, but if a Thousand Sun army built in this detachment, where do you think it would rank in a tier list, like from D tier up to S tier?
C tier? It's not the worst. Like it can definitely, definitely still Tsons. You can definitely still Doombolt / free strat your way into some wins. You still have some of the best troops and some of the best troops. Your Vortex Beasts are still dirt cheap for what they do. If you really think the detachment isn't that good, you can still ally in like 3 Brigands, and Magnus can still do a lot of work by themselves.
Yeah.
So I would go with C tier.
Yeah, I'd be about the same. Because it's Thousand Suns and it has like one of the best army rules in the game, it's never going to be the worst of the worst. But yeah, it's not going to shine in any way.
Yeah.
And all right, my man, that brings us to the end of this first segment. Everyone sit tight. We will be back with, I can't remember if it's Richard or Josh next, if it's Admech or the Necrons next. But good luck to you, sir. You're going off to the LVO soon, going to try and contest for your number 1,000 Suns position, and you're in the top 10 in the ITC as well. And you're one of the American hopefuls for stopping the Euro charge towards the top
It's
of the
pretty
ITC,
substantial right now. I looked at it, it's like
dude,
me, Derek, and Sam are the top 3 in the country, and that's it. And then
everyone
the rest is
dude,
crazy.
top five is just England. Like just that LGT, the UKTC circuit has just dominated. Yeah.
So
easy done. Well, dude, everyone sit tight. Come and join us over on part 2, where TJ and I are going to do our very, very, very best to try and build a list or two out of this detachment, talk about some matchups, and when we get tired of that, which will probably be pretty quickly, we're going to talk about Tsons into the current meta, their challenges, and also answer some patron questions. So hopefully you'll join us there, guys. And thanks again, TJ, for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
G'day, my lovelies, and welcome to what I think is episode 223. I'm not sure if this is segment 1, segment 2, segment 3, because we're going to be doing 3 detachments this week. We have just come off last week's episode reviewing the Slate and the MFM, and I'm joined by the two-time ITC winner, Richard the Machine Siegler, Robot Siegler, whatever. Hello, mate.
That's a hell of an introduction. I appreciate the extra effort you went for me.
I always get the extra effort. You either get a great intro or an awful nickname when you come on my show.
Hey, I'm all about the great intro.
You won the coin flip this time. So, yeah. Anyway, we are going to be here to review the brand new Grotmas detachment for the Adeptus Mechanicus. I managed to catch Richard Siegler for he jets off on a beautiful holiday to Brazil. So I'm recording this a couple of weeks in advance from when you are going to be hearing it, but we do have full knowledge of the slate and MFM, so we can review it from that level also. So just jumping straight in, mate, please. I understand there is a beautiful Grotmas deal happening for the War Room right now. Please let us know about that.
Absolutely. If you want to hear my thoughts on Admech, on any of the armies that I play, but also the thoughts of other top players like John Lennon, Jack Harpster, Nick Nanavati, Quinn Johnson. If you want to hear all our thoughts, head over to the Worm at theworm.vhx.tv, and there's a 50% off your first month coupon code right now. That is Grotmas 2024, all caps. And with that, you also join our awesome community. So come on over. This is the best time to join, as the meta is brand new. It's wide open. There's so many changes, and we're going to break it down for you.
At a minimum, you should take that deal and go harvest everything you can out of the Discord, because that Discord is one of the best in the world for keeping up with the game, staying current, and learning all the hotness that everyone is brewing out there in the competitive sphere. But this new detachment, the Hello Screed Battle Clade, what are your hot takes, mate? How do you feel about it?
In my opinion, this immediately jumps up to the second best and clear second best Admech Detachment. Far better than everything besides the Skitarii Hunter cohort.
And the Skitarii Hunter cohort is so good because it is the control play of the game right now, which only got better with the changes, especially the Armor Contempt change. I think is going to be the biggest boost to Adeptus Mechanicus in the meta. But this plays a very, very different game to that one, where they want to control the board, take away the primary, saturate everything. And but this is extremely different. And so, I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I had the index attachment as the second best prior to this, and it was a bit of a cliff between Skitarii Hunter and the Rad Zone. But you how far behind Skitarii Hunter do you have this one?
So I had the Cybernetica actually as the second attachment. However, I think that this one is, if we're going to say Skitarii is 10 out of 10 for an Admech detachment, then this is probably like an 8, I would say.
Yep. Yeah, which is on brand for the better. I mean, there's you've probably seen by now, people out there. There are some absolute potatoes covered out for Grotmas, but there's some good stuff too. And the best of the bunch, apart from the broken ones, are usually about 15 to 20% worse than your best build right now, which I think is exactly what we want from this.
This is a great detachment, and the important thing about it is that it opens up units that you otherwise would never take in Skitarii Hunter cohort. So it makes playing Admech more interesting, as you aren't stuck with the same exact unit set. Now you can run that unit set and do good things here, but it opens up, if you want to do some weirder things, they can work here.
Exactly right, and it gives you much more list diversity, because essentially once you reach the 30 plus birds and 40 to 60 rangers, vanguard, whatever the hell, that's kind of your list. You just got to take disintegrators or ballistari to fill out with maybe some infiltrators and sulfur hounds or whatever. No, Cerberus raiders. But anyway, the detachment ability is in your command phase, select one or more units from your army, including units that are embarked within transports, which is a nice quality of life. The maximum number of units that you can select depends on the battle as follows. And of course, Strike Force, 2,000 points, is 2 units. Until the start of your next command phase, the units gain the Halo Override keyword. Then select one of the override abilities below. Until the start of your next command phase, units in your army with the Halo Override keyword have the selected override ability. First one is +2 to move. Next one is at +1 toughness. Ooh. Next one is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. And the last one is models in this unit have stealth. How do you feel about this as a detachment ability?
It's quite strong. 2 units is on the lower side because if you look at this, the one that stands out probably to you is advance and charge as the strongest of the 3. Mobility being obviously king and 40 play.
Yeah.
However, our ability to advance and charge, our combat units are just not that good, frankly. Admech's combat units are atrocious compared to the better combat units in the game.
My issue's always been with them. They're good against the very specific thing they're good against, and then absolutely rubbish into the rest of the meta. Whereas like Deathwing Knights are good against everything. Ruststalker is specifically good at this one day of the week. Same with things like Dragoons. Like, oh cool, you played against Knights. They are gods. Everywhere else,
Yeah, so there's a fundamental problem with the units that you were trying to send into combat. So effectively, the strongest use out of this, in my opinion, is still using it on Vanguard and on your Skitarii bodies to contest objectives and tie people up. Same stuff you're doing with Skitarii Hunter cohort. So while other armies gaining access to advance and charge on 2 key units in a turn would be like, oh my god, that's crazy. This is much less crazy because of Admech datasheet situation.
I do think you're correct in that 2 is on the low side. I could have easily seen this being 2, 3, 4 rather than 1, 2, 3 as it is.
I think with the power level of these, like +1 toughness, also, it's neat. There's a bunch of T7 that we have that can go to T8, which is kind of cute. T4 can go to T5, T3 can go to T4, although that's not really too impactful. And then ideally, it's going to be like the Onagers or the Disintegrators or going up to T11, or the Scorpius Dune Rider, the transport going from T9 to T10. That's pretty impactful in terms of breakpoints, but it's not like game-breakingly strong.
Yeah.
2-inch movement is very useful. Making sure you pull off the plays where you need to get into certain spots is really helpful to actually get units like your infiltrators in range of an objective that you had to stage a little farther back from, because they move 8. All of a sudden, with 2 inches move 10 inches, you're probably getting there without having to advance. So now you can do an action on the center or some other objective.
Yep.
It's useful in that sense. And then stealth. You kind of replicate what you're doing in Hunter cohort of the 5 of Phenopane strat.
All right. What is the first of the enhancement, man?
So it's the Trans Oracular Dyad wafers. These are some of the tastiest wafers that you can toss.
I made you read that because I didn't want to.
You're about the wafers. I know you're a wafer man.
I'm a wafer man.
This goes on a Cybernetic Adatasmith model only. And when the bearer is attached to a Castellan Robots unit until the end of the battle, models in that unit have Doctrine Imperatives, which is the army rule. The only other way to give them Doctrine Imperatives is the detachment rule for Cybernetica. This is only the one of 2 ways to get that. And Doctrinas are obviously far more impactful with the June update being legitimately good now. And they also gain the Halo Override keyword, which means that they will get one of whichever ability you pick for Halo Override. They will get that. So they can get +2 inch move, they can advance and charge, they can get +1 toughness, they can get stealth. All that's good on them. And the key thing here is that ultimately, robots did go down in points in the data slate or the MFL, but this detachment doesn't have the go through wall strat, which some other detachments are getting. And that was the thing that would have put them over to be viable, I think. Otherwise, they still need more decreases. They're so easily move blocked. There are a ton of points. And with the shooting in the game right now, I don't think this is really going to make it into the competitive versions of this list, in my opinion.
Fair. I still think this is a good 30 points, though, because if you are taking a Data Smith, obviously you're taking Castellan robots, and you're giving them the one thing that they always needed, which is Doctrine and Imperatives, apart from obviously Go Through Walls. And yeah, you're giving you your third unit for your Halo overrides. And so I think this is a good 30 points if you are going down the robot route.
If you take robots, you would be silly not to take it.
Yeah, it's auto take. Cognitive Reinforcement is up next. It's 35 points. Admech model only. Lol. I love that they have to say that. Excluding Cybernetic and Data Smiths. The Conquer Imperative and Protector Imperative are both active for the Bearers unit. This feels pretty good, but I don't know how I feel about 35 points for it.
So you actually mentioned Admech model only. The detachment rule doesn't specify Admech models, and so you can actually use it on allied units like Canis Rex or
for now.
Probably isn't intended. I'm not abusing that. I don't think that's needed in Admech, but that's a funny little quirk right now. And for this in particular, you can look at it and say 35 points is pricey. Probably they priced it because you can put it on a Manipulus in a Breacher unit. And so it'll hit on 3s with full rerolls. It'll also be the additional AP if it's near battle line. And so it gets all the different bonuses. And at that point, that's a pretty hard-hitting shooting and combat unit, and the 35 points is totally worth it. On some of the lesser units, it's a little bit less impactful and probably not worth the 35 points, but it's still solid.
For me, this is breaches or bust, right? That's the only place this finds a home to me because you can't put it on the Data Smith, obviously.
I kind of like it in the new meta where Armor of Contempt is less potent because you can put it on a Marshal and his unit, because their battle line will always be in range of themselves, and so they will always have +1 AP, which means that you can fire other stuff, get the Armor of Contempt baited out, and then have a nice full rerolls to wound, full rerolls to hit unit that also has the AP in addition to hitting on 3s.
That's fair.
It's cute there. Fair. Is it worth 35 points? I'm not sure, but it's at least, there's other uses you can think of.
All right, what's next?
Sanctified Ordnance is 10 points. It goes on an Admech model, plus 6-inch range to the characteristic to range weapons, and each time a hazardous test is taken for the unit, you can reroll the result. This is effectively crying out for you to take Cataphron Destroyers, because it gives them reroll hazardous on their plasma, and the plus 6-inch range works on both their flamers and their plasma. Plasma doesn't really need 6-inch range, but the flamers quite like it. And 10 points is ludicrously cheap. You can also put it on a Vanguard squad to get them at 24-inch range instead of 18 on their radium carbines, and that's probably where you're going to see it. It could also go on a breacher unit to make sure their half range is 18 instead of 15, which is also quite useful because getting within 15 is not always easy.
Yeah, I don't mind all of those ideas. I mean, the breach is obviously is what you're saying it's crying out for, but that is just a...
Yeah, you can put it on Corpus Scari too. Their 12-inch range goes to 18. That's significant.
This to me is just like, where's my special weapon unit of 5 Vanguard or Rangers, right? Where's my unit that has 5 plasma guns? Because you talk about anything other than the destroyers, the hazardous buff doesn't really touch the sides.
Exactly.
Maybe you're saying...
I wish you could take multiple special weapons in Vanguard. The arc rifles is what you would take.
All right, Inloaded Lethality is up last, 15 points. Tech Priest Dominus or Manipulus. Add 3 to the attack characteristic of the bearer's melee weapons and add 1 to the damage characteristic of the bearer's melee weapons. This, I mean, in any other book, this would be cracked. If you're telling me I get a chaos. Yeah, well, it is like Chaos Space Marines, regular Space Marines, anything apart from probably this and Guard. It's cracked. What do you think about this?
I think if you have 15 points and you haven't had an enhancement on you're more likely to take a Manipulus than a Dominus.
Yeah.
Go ahead and put it on there because it actually does increases his potential combat damage, which is not something Admech has much of. So yeah, if you have extra 15 points, let's say that you don't take either Sanctified or Cognitive, then you probably just throw this on your Manipulus and he punches up a bit.
It would be pretty funny because then you'd have 7 attacks at 6-1-3. Very cute.
Yeah, still he'll go to hitting on 2s.
That's right.
And then he'll be AP3 if near battle line.
It's pretty cute. It is pretty cute. He just turns into 2 Blade Guard in a trench coat. It's pretty funny.
The Dominus goes to AP3.
Yeah. Of these, which is your pick of the bunch? Like, if you were to put these in a tier list of priority for the enhancements.
If you have a Manipulus, and you're not running Corpus Scari, I would probably consider the combat one actually the best one here. It's a profile that we don't have access to. And then cognitive reinforcement, if you're running one of the more expensive bricks, or you have the extra points to put it on a Vanguard squad, then you would pick that. Sanctified Ordnance is the third best one, in my opinion, but it's also the cheapest. So honestly, I'll put that second, cognitive third, and then the wafers is the last one because I don't think we're allowed competitive.
All right, into the first of the stratagems. Eradication protocols, 1 CP in your shooting phase or the fight phase. 1 Adeptus Mechanicus unit from your army has not been selected to fight. Into the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack reroll or wound roll of 1. If it's a Halo override unit, reroll a hit roll of 1 also. How good is this? Because to me, on face value, I'm a bit like, you have a lot of access to rerolls when you want them, especially in the shooting phase.
It should be reroll wounds. If it was reroll wounds, now we're talking. The Halo unit gets reroll wounds. Reroll ones is something you can get in Admech, or there are a bunch of units that can reroll hits. So this is not that impactful. Like technically, you can use it on Iron Strider unit, make it a little more efficient. You could put it on Rust Stalkers, make them a little more efficient, but it's not a dramatic boost. In my opinion.
I've never found Admech struggles for rerolls. What they do struggle for is quality profiles, like quality damage output profiles.
That is true.
As in reaching the right strength and toughness and AP and damage. So to break through damage checks. And this one doesn't help with that at all. What's the next one?
Next one is Targeting Override. It's 1 CP. It's used in your shooting or the fight phase. You pick an Admech unit. Doesn't have to be Halo Override. And it gets crit 5s. So every 5 and 6 hit is a... usually you can get lethal or sustained in a variety of ways. So the units that this is strong on are Corpuscari, because you can put a Manipulus in there, so they gain lethals. Sustain 2, they have natively, so they can be every 5 to hit. A 5+ to hit is a lethal, and also 2 additional hits.
Wild.
That's good. You have access to, Manipulus can go in a variety of things, so he can go in the Cataphren units, so then every 5 to hit is going to be a lethal hit on those. It's fine. You would be like this in other armies is crazy because there are a bunch of units that have sustained or lethal that are on their key units and are amazing. Man, like you said, you could put it on the breachers and it's good, but it's not crazy. It's not, old fire discipline eradicators or anything like that. I've rolled the Corpuscari unit out. It's a lot of AP 0 attacks. Even if it's AP 1, it doesn't ignore cover. There's just problems with punching through damage with this, where in other armies it'd be spectacular. In my experience playing the detachment so far, I have not been super impressed with the crit 5s. Like, you can use it on an Iron Strider unit, give them reroll 1s to hit, 1s to wound, crit 5s on them. You just don't roll enough 5s and 6 attacks. Doesn't get anything. It's just,
Yeah. All right, Neural Overload is next. It's 1 CP in your movement phase, 1 Admech unit. If your unit is a Halo Override unit, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. Select 1 Halo Override ability until the starting next command phase. That one is active for your unit. So this does nothing if you're not a Halo Override unit, so it's pretty much telling you exactly where you're going to use it.
That's not true.
Oh, sorry, go for it.
So you pick an Admech unit.
Oh, of course. There's a full stop there.
Override. It suffers D3 wounds, and you get to effectively pick a second ability. If it doesn't, you just select an override ability.
Yeah, correct. So you get to flex into being Halo Override if you're not. Sorry, I read that incorrectly.
Exactly.
I thought it was a comma.
So if you really need a third unit to get like +2 move or stealth or something like that, you can do it. Or you can double up on something that's critical to make sure that it gets like advanced charge and +2 inch move. Especially if it has feel no pain or enough D3 mortals is relevant.
So what I like about this is the triggering time. It's not start, middle, end of any phase. It's just in your phase. So you can roll a bunch of advances on advance and charge units, and if they all roll 1s, you can try and go for a third. Something like that. If you just need to reach an objective or behind enemy lines or something like that, you just have full ability to trigger this at your will. So I like the timing a lot.
Yeah, the +2 inch move. You're like, okay, cool. Well, I didn't reach the objective that I needed to. Okay, this unit needs +2 inch move now. Cool, get there.
Yep, spot on. What's the next one?
Aggressive Impulse. It's 1 CP. It's used in your movement phase. A Scorpius Dune Rider model, which is the transport. Till the end of the turn, each time an Admech unit disembarks from it, after it made a normal move, that unit is eligible to declare a charge this turn. So you can move the transport, disembark, and still charge something. Once again, you can charge Rust Stalkers, Corpuscari units, Fulgurites technically, although they have only 2 attacks each. So you could do Infiltrators as well. Ultimately, go ahead.
How does this work with the fact that you can select units in transports to be Halo Overrides?
So you don't get to make a normal move after you disembark. You just make the charge move. So you would basically be giving yourself +1 toughness or stealth, and more likely you would give +2-inch move to the transport just to get the transport closer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, what's the toughest thing you can put in a transport? Because it's all just T3, right? You can't put any T4 in there.
Yeah, you can. You can put Rust Stalkers and Infiltrators in it.
Oh, of course, nice. So yeah, you can go +2 move on the Dune Rider, +1 toughness to go to T5 if that's a breakpoint in your matchup on the contents, and then push them into behind enemy lines, disembark the unit, charge, take out some scouts, flip an objective. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, so you can do that. There's a variety of ways Admech have to access objectives without using CP. So it'll really come down to what you're actually bringing.
All right, next one, Guided Retreat, 1 CP. You move in phase just after an Admech unit from your army falls back. Till the end of the turn, your unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn in which it fell back. If it's a Halo Override unit, you can re-roll Desperate Escape tests should you be having to take them, should you be battle shocked or anything else like that. 1 CP fallback and do whatever you want is just the going rate. That's above average for going rate. Most people is 1 CP, fallback, shoot, or charge. Just getting both, it's as good as the best one in the game, which is the Votan one, and now you've got it.
This is the second best strat here, in my opinion. And the reason is that Admech armies are incentivized to get aggressive against Admech, and oftentimes with pylons, consolidates, etc., they will be able to tag units that you otherwise, were trying to use in other ways. And the ability to fall back, shoot, and charge is absolutely amazing. Rerolling Desperate Escapes does help too if they're able to surround your units, just so that play isn't, I have to use CP on this strat plus also a reroll on Desperate. So I think this is a great strat, and it's one that any Admech detachment would love to have.
And of course, if you do need to roll a Desperate on like a large unit, let's say a full unit of Corpuscari or something like that, you just make them Halo Override before you fall them back. You can choose in your command phase, and then you're good to go. All right, what's the last one?
Okay, this is the best strat. This is the reason you would consider this detachment over Skitarii Hunter cohort. So it's Analytical Divination, 1 CP, your opponent's movement phase just after an enemy unit ends a normal advance or fallback move. You pick 1 Admech infantry unit that excludes Cataphron units. It also excludes the Castellan robots with the Datasmith, because with the Codex, he loses infantry when he joins a robot unit. So there's no trickery around that. So once an enemy unit ends within 9 of your Admech unit, you can make a normal move of up to D6 or flat 6 if you're Halo Override. So 6-inch reactive move on Halo Override units or D6 on anything else. It's only infantry and can't be used on breachers where it would totally be used. But it is fantastic. You can step out units, contest objectives, and reactive move them behind the wall or onto the other side of Ruin where their guns no longer can really interact with you, or 6 inches away from their charge. This is going to be what you use almost every single time. It's amazing. This is the best strategy by far.
I've never asked this question, but you're probably a good person to ask it to. Can you do 2 reactive moves with the same unit in the same turn?
In terms of, you're thinking of what?
Service Raiders.
So Cerberus Raiders are not infantry, so can't use this.
This is why you're here, mate. This is why you're here. But I do like the idea of having an army that just has like heaps of reactive moves to flex into.
So you can totally have it. How the Cerberus Raiders works is if you end within 9 of them, they can D6 move, or if they end wholly within 6 of battle line, they can flat 6. So you could have them plus a different unit use it.
That's cool. I do think that is the best one. Yeah, that and the Guided Retreat is just like actually enough to build an army around, like a shooting army around with just some little bits and pieces. And the rest of them are just kind of nice to have. It's just so weird that the first one's the bad one. Like if you just told me, you get roll 1s to hit, 1s to wound, in so many other armies, I'd be like, that's a great 1 CP.
You look at the 3 stratagems: Eradication Protocols, Targeting Override, Crit 5s, and then the Disembark after you've moved to Transport. Those 3, I read it. People read this detachment and were like, these rules are insane. This is one of the best detachments in the game. And it's like, calm down. First of all, if you had this army with your broken rules, 100% it would be. But we have Admech data sheets, and these things are propped up by a huge increase to the army rule. And so with that, these things just aren't as strong as they would be in a lot of other armies. And so ultimately, once again, you can look at what do I value here? It's the ability to move how I want to, and the ability to put units in the positions that I need to score points, contest points, and stop my opponent from moving. And so once again, and I'm going to disagree with your earlier point about how this is a totally different play style than Skitarii Hunter cohort. I genuinely don't think it is. I think you play
Okay.
a very similar play style. You have similar tools, yet you have a couple key differences. You have greater trickery here with the reactive move versus the extra durability of Hunter cohort. And so you can pick which one you want, but I think ultimately the list between the two will get more and more similar as
Mm.
people get used to this detachment. I've been trying out the different units that I don't run in Hunter cohort with crit fives and rerolls and all this stuff. It's just not that good. However, the move blocking people, reactive moving away, making it really hard for them to interact with our units, that is extremely strong. And that's going to be the main strength of this detachment. So similar to Hunter cohort, different sides of the coin, durability versus greater trickery,
Mm.
but they're both going to end up doing the same because that's what the Admech data sheets and points are designed to do.
I get you. Yeah, and I can't disagree. You're the Admech guy, and if you've tested them, you've tested a bunch of these units, then you know better than me. My favorite thing is the way that aggressive impulse works with analytic divination, where you go and you get aggressive on your opponent, you put something on an objective, blow something else up, and when they try to react, you just leg it. You can't use the can you use analytic divination to get inside a transport? You can't, can you?
It is not restricted to. So you might not have Battlesphere uplink, but you pop out your Vanguard, contest the objective away, but this transport's sitting safely behind that wall. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, oh, you ended within 9? Cool. Flat 6 because it's Halo Override. Back
Yep.
in the transport as I end within 3 of it.
And the Halo Override just gives you so much more reach. And yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's a play. That's just like
It's
like
it is literally this detachment is about trickery and making sure your units are in the positions that they need with that plus 2-inch move or the advance in charge. And that's what this detachment's about. The damage stuff is sexy and it looks hot and it looks amazing. But ultimately, you're about the personality here. And the personality is the trickery.
So forgive me if I'm wrong. So 5 infiltrators is 2 wounds at toughness 4 with a 4+5+, yeah?
Which one? The Rustalkers you're talking about?
Infiltrators or Rustalkers, yeah?
Yeah, they're going to be 2 wounds at T4. Could go to T5, and then they're 4 up armor save, 5 up invul.
And then for 1 CP, you could give them stealth as well. So then they could be.
They have it.
Oh, they already have stealth. That's right.
Infiltrators have it for sure. I'm pretty sure Rustalkers have it as well. The Skarns just have that.
That's not easy to dislodge with just misc shooting. Like -1 to hit, toughness 5, 2 wounds, 5 up invuln. That's like kind of annoying to kill.
It's annoying to kill, but ultimately, if you're relying on trying to have units survive, you want to go Hunter cohort with the 5 of strat.
Yeah, 5 of pain's just too good. All right, that brings us to the end of the review of the detachment. So we have 2 things we do here. So out of 10, my man, speaking for yourself and all Admech players out there, all 7 or 8 of you, speaking through the conduit of the robot himself, how would you rank this out of 10? So how happy are you, and do you think Admech players will be with this detachment?
So let me give you a little context here. Explorator is a 1 as a detachment. Then you
damn right it is.
Then you have the Datasom Conclave, which is a 2. Then you have a 3 for Rad Zone, and then you have a 4 for Cybernetica. And they're all garbage and would never be played in any other army. However, this detachment is a solid 8, I would say.
Nice. I would have gone a little bit lower, and that's simply for the purpose of that the detachment rule doesn't have a single damage increasing option. Outside of advancing and charging, I guess, could increase damage. But if it had like a plus to strength option, like plus to melee or ranged strength option, I would give it much higher, because that's the thing that I feel like Admech need the most. Is just like a flat, make me better at the thing that my army's bad at. So without that, I'd probably give it a 6 or a 7.
I think its trickery is like I said, the Hunter cohort for Admech is a 10 out of 10. I think the trickery brings it up enough that it's not that far from Hunter cohort. You're right. I would have loved to, I look at, advance and charge plus 2-inch mover, sweet. Honestly, +1 toughness and stealth I could do without, because if I want stealth, I'm just playing Hunter cohort.
Correct.
And I would trade those for some sort of damage boost.
Yeah, I would straight up get rid of stealth, because you've got that in spades if you want to pull that lever elsewhere, and I would have +1 to strength of ranged weapons instead. And yeah, all right. Where would you put this in the competitive tier list, my man? F tier all the way up to S tier. Where would you put it?
In terms of other detachments in the game?
As in, like, where going into the new meta, people playing this detachment as Admech, where do you think that list ranks? Or how do you think it'll do?
It'll probably be, I would say, probably say low B.
Yeah, I'd put it somewhere between low B, mid C. Is where I believe it'll sit. I think, once again, Admech's biggest buff is not this detachment. It's going to be the change to Armor Contempt. But we're going to go talk about all that goodness over on part 2. So, my man, thank you very much for coming on. You're always a great wealth of information, and I appreciate you. Hopefully, you right now, when people listen to this, you're over, on some beautiful beach somewhere in a villa, enjoying some time off. And yeah, thanks very much. Feel free to plug anything else you'd like to plug at the end of this.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, you like my Admech analysis, you want more, you want to see Admech played at a high level and thought about on a high level, check out The Worm at theworm.vhx.tv. It's a 3-day free trial always, but much better right now is 50% off your first month with the code Grotmas 2024, all caps on that. And this is only limited time, so make sure you do it ASAP and get in there, join our community, and access all the amazing Admech content. I did a bunch of recaps on some of my World Championship games and plenty of other games throughout the year. I've been playing a lot of Admech.
Fantastic. See you on the other side, guys. Hope you'll join us. G'day, my lovelies, and welcome to the final segment for episode 223. You know what it is by now because you've heard the other two. We are here with the beautiful Joshua Campbell, currently 4 points behind the leader in the Necron ITC ladder, and are going to be contesting and trying to win his position as the best Necron player in the world for the year of 2024 at the LVO. His name's Joshua Campbell. You've heard him before. He has become my go-to Necrons guy because he is so much freaking fun to have on. Hello, mate.
Howdy. It's a pleasure to be on. I love talking about the game, so anytime that someone gives me an excuse to yap for an hour or two, I'll take it.
Fan-freaking-tastic. And I will say, well done, being in a position to contest even the Necron ITC in a year where Necrons have been the army of the last 12 months, essentially being at the top or near the top for the entirety of this year. Absolutely buck wild, and well done to you, mate. Hopefully you'll get across the line over, is it Andy Cohen?
Yeah. It's me or him. We've been chatting back and forth on Discord, and we both wish each other the best. Obviously, someone could take it up from up beneath if they actually win LVO, but we're both doing our best to end the year strong. And you know what? As a Necron player, it feels good that we can get all edition. It feels very fair and balanced. Truly, James himself is the best balancer in the world.
Fantastic. Well, we are here to review the Star Shatter Arsenal that came out in Grotmas, and this is an interesting detachment. There's been a lot of knee-jerk reactions, a lot of the internet rabble-rousing, mostly because I see, my hot take is this is an extremely good detachment. Possibly not the best one that's come out in Grotmas. I think the Guard one and possibly some of the other ones on face value, like the Demons, despite them working in a very exclusive sandbox of units that will actually work in those attachments, is one of the best ones. But I think the knee-jerk reaction has been more of people just hating that the feeling that the rich got richer, where their detachment got some middling stuff like what Votan and Tsons got, which you obviously just heard moments ago. Whereas Necron's just got another banger coming out of left field. What's your hot takes on this detachment?
I mean, I don't know if it's hot, but I'll give you my tepid takes. The tepid takes is that to a certain extent, the internet is right. It is a very good detachment. It is not, I would say, the best thing since sliced bread. It is not anything that is like, how could you have printed this? It's about 5 to 10% better than the other options. And we got a couple of points adjustments that felt very, weird. My overall take is that we are somewhere between the 4th and the 7th best army in the game. And then I'm not quite sure where in the meta we're going to be exactly, but we deserve a little bit of the hate, but not all of the hate. It's a very good detachment.
Yeah, I think well, as somebody who's played a multitude of different detachments and mostly playing guard, I've felt quite a bit of the hate this year from people being like, you just keep getting all this good stuff. You keep getting buffs. And I guess Necron right now is sitting as the perpetual like gold standard for always relevant in the game, especially, in the past 12 months. Like Necrons have never not been something you had to worry about at going to a GT. Whereas like even Sisters have at some point in the last 12 months been like, I probably won't run into them. Whereas like I've played 6-game GTs and had to run into Necrons 2, sometimes 3 times because they are just so strong and so worth taking.
I mean, we were I think the most represented at WCW, right? Like I think we had, was it like 10 more people than the next most populated faction? Like there was an obscene amount of them.
Anyway, let us jump into the review. And of course, you can join us over in part 2 at Art of War Down Under to get our further hot takes. We're going to build some lists for the Star Shatter Arsenal and talk about some matchups and talk about the meta a bit. I'm really keen to hear what Josh thinks are the 4, possibly 5 or 6 better factions than what Necrons can produce, especially running into the LVO meta, what we can possibly see out there. But the detachment rule reads: each time a Necron's model from your army makes an attack that targets a unit within 1 or more objective markers, +1 to hit. In addition, ranged weapons equipped by Necron vehicle and Necron mounted models from your army have assault. We all know how good just giving assault to your stuff is. Essentially carried Sisters to the top of the meta and kept them there for about 6 months off the back of the Bringers of Flame. But then just getting +1 to hit army wide, regardless of if you are anything, is pretty dang great too. What are your takes, mate?
I mean, it's absolutely a banger. I mean, I'm not going to hide the fact that I am 100% bringing Star Shatter to LVO. The only thing that's in question now is the exact build. I think that most Necron players are going to gravitate to it just because, once again, it just does the things the other detachments do, but a little bit better. The only person who might be the exception is Walter Langendorf, and that's just because he just
Walter.
he just likes to play the little black sheep builds that no one else is playing, and I've grown to appreciate it more as he's continued his success. The 40 warrior build with double royal warden was fun to play out, and he continued to iterate his awakened stuff. But it's very, very good, I'll say.
Okay, tell us about the first of the enhancements.
Well, there's 4. They're all bangers. I think best one by far is Demanding Leader. In the movement phase, you can it's going to attach to anything for what it's worth. You select a friendly Necron vehicle or mounted unit, and they can fall back and shoot. Importantly, this is at any point in the movement phase, so you can do all 3, like the 3 good versions. So at the start of the movement phase, before anyone moves, you can say, "Hey, I choose you. You get the buff. Good job." The second case is your thing with the enhancement walks close to the vehicle in combat, gives the buff to the vehicle in combat, and the vehicle in combat falls back over it's the thing it's in combat with, and then moves forward with the buff. Or let's say they're very far apart. You both move closer together, and after both of you ended your movement, you're now within 6 inches, and you go, huzzah, huzzah, you fall back and shoot. Good job. It is the best enhancement. It's 10 points. You take it in every list. Don't even think about it. Just windmill slam it. The only problem that you're going to have is bringing the character that wants to hold it.
Yeah, which character you're going to bring to give it to. The first one is Dread Majesty, which is an aura for 30 points. It's an Overlord or Catacomb Command Barge model only, while friendly Necron's unit that isn't Titanic is within 6 of the bearer. Each time model unit makes an attack, reroll hit roll of 1 and reroll a wound roll of 1. And I mean, that is on the Busto scale of incredible. Of course, the Silent King can bring pretty much the same deal, and the Silent King brings the Silent King. So maybe you should just bring the Silent King, which kind of does make this redundant when SK is just so dang good in this detachment. But on face value, still a very, very good aura.
Yeah, no, I mean, in the end, all these you're going to see. The Dread Majesty aura is useful when you want to play the wide shooting castle, or you want to play the No King builds. I'm aware of a couple different teams who are interested in using that to project those threat ranges on a wide side of the board.
Yeah.
And it is one that I'll say is a path divergence in build, but it's very strong. Going into the next one, though, we have the classic one. It's going to go on exactly the Locust the Locust Lord.
Yes.
Probably nothing else. Range weapons in the models, the models, the bearer's unit. Oh my gosh. have the ignore cover ability. It means that you get your strength 6, AP 1 damage, locust heavies with enigmatics, and they just rock and roll.
It's only 15 points, and we all know that with the AOC change, the Yarmric Attempt change, AP1 ignores cover is actually a pretty good place to be right now.
Yep, it helps you in like the horde matchups. You weirdly sometimes will have a volume issue, and you hit some of your problem matchups like Orc or like CSM that still are running ACDC or like Admech. You're really going to appreciate like having the GSC exactly. You're going to really appreciate having like one locust heavy brick with this. I end up not using it in a lot of my builds because the other ones are so valuable, but it's very good.
All right, and the last one is Chrono Impedance Fields, 25 points. Necron's model only, of course. In your command phase, select one friendly Necron's vehicle or mounted unit that isn't Titanic within 6 of the bearer. Until starting that command phase, each time an attack is allocated to the model in that unit, -1 from the damage. Ooh, me oh my. That is quite spicy also.
It's a banger.
It is an absolute banger. Annoyingly, 4 good enhancements.
Yeah, I mean, like, Chrono Impedance Fields gives you just a win condition. It firstly is it's huge value. Making things -1 damage just makes them efficient. And then bulleting them forward to go stand on points and be annoying is good. But they give you the win condition in melee matchups where you just give -1 damage to the Silent King and you say, I don't know, do it, kid. And then like sometimes they do, but assuming you're playing, a little bit carefully, most of the time they can't. And then he becomes an unkillable god.
Yeah. Well, you think about what that does to things like the Custodians matchups, where in combat all they do is wielding like en masse damage too, and you're like, lol. Because so the biggest lever that all the I believe all the vehicles pull is the fact that they halve incoming damage by the dint of having a 4-up invuln, and they have above average wounds per chassis on their things, like 14 wounds on DDA, for example.
Yeah.
Being a Doomsday Arc, and just being -1 damage on that just changes so many breakpoints for incoming stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I know sisters aren't necessarily top of the meta in your mind right now, but like, I don't know, a Castigator shoots at a DDA with -1 damage, it's just not going to kill it.
No chance. You can almost dial up 2 or 3 of them and still not get through, depending on the 4-ups.
The problem with that, with lining up 2 to 3 of them to shoot at them, comes with a stratagem we're going to get to in just a second.
Correct. But of those, obviously you rank Demanding Leader as the number 1 there. What do you rank as 2 and 3?
Chrono Impedance is number 2. I personally am running those in every single build that I'm running. With like a couple niche exceptions that are like skewed builds in a certain direction. But I almost always run Chrono Impedance and Demanding Leader. And then Dread Majesty and Miniaturized Nebuloscope both have their place. But they have their place when you're going for the build that wants that. Like in a lot of cases, I found like this goes into meta a little bit, but like the 3-man Locust Heavy Destroyer unit without the Lord is actually sufficient damage. And you don't always need the ignore cover on it. Well, it makes it an excellent, consistent brick unit, which means that you can solve problems, which DDAs can't always solve because they roll ones and numbers of shots. They allow me more trading pieces. And then Dread Majesty is the full shooting castle. Send it. We're playing fast gun. 3 Immolator, 3 Castigator, 3 Exorcist type of build. But
I see Dread Majesty as a trap. Personally, because I think that build isn't the best build you can do with this list, and I think that's the best build. That is the build that will get people stuck, being just not enough scoring pieces. Oh no, I've got 1,500 points of my army strapped to being within 6 inches of this guy with Dread Majesty, and just kind of don't play enough of the table to win games consistently. So that's my least good is the Dread Majesty. Plus, in addition, it's kind of a nombo with the Silent King.
Yeah, like I would say that. In my testing, barring a couple of small builds, I've found that the math is so the Silent King is 420 and the CCB with the enhancement is 150, and they fulfill the exact same role except the Silent King is a real boy and the CCB is not a real boy, right? So,
but it is a third the cost, right? It's a third the cost. So it is a
third the cost. But here's the thing: would you pay 270 points for just the Silent King no auras? And I think you definitely would. And that's why the Silent King makes it into builds. Is like the CCB, in my opinion, I agree, is the wrong version unless you want to run King plus CCB.
Ooh, Ooh, okay, that does make things spicy because then it leaves you free to push the Silent King up the board and kind of let him play his role.
I think, like, for example, in teams, I think there's very valuable, like, skewed, like, primary denial builds that just say I'm tank chassis that are too efficient. And you play them on an open board. You know, you have this be an attack into layout 5 or layout, an open board essentially. And that has value in that because they can win the shootout. Throw in Canoptic Doomstalkers and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But in singles, I think it's a little bit greedy.
I think that sums it up nicely. All right, first of the stratagems, Merciless Reacclimation. 1 CP, it's in your shooting phase or the fight phase. 1 Necron's unit that isn't Titanic from your army that hasn't been selected to shoot or fight. At the end of the phase, each time model unit makes an attack, if the target of that attack is within range of 1 or more objective markers, +1 to wound. Now, there are a bunch of guns that do not need this, like Doomstalkers and DDAs do not need this at all. They're usually wounding on 2s or 3s the vast majority of the time, especially those things that people are going to want to trade on objectives. But this really comes up because it is 1 Necron's unit. It is not mounted. It is not vehicle. It's freaking anything. You can use this on your freaking warriors if you want. I think this is a pretty busted stratagem.
I won't go so far as to say busted, but it's quite good. I think that the biggest users of this stratagem actually end up being your medium skirmish pieces to gain value. Similar to how in Gladius you'll pop Lance Lethal or whatever the stratagem is, just to make your JPIs do more damage than they should, or your Reavers or what have you. So it lets them punch up in durability, and that usually ends up being things like your mid skirmish things, maybe small Locust Ricks, maybe a couple a 2-man Locust Heavy, Flayed Ones, Scorpix, Ophidians, Lich Guard, anything like that. Great. Also, like, lets you fight out of combat sometimes.
All right, what's the next one?
That's moving, but that's I think great stratagem. Moving into the next one, right? We have kind of the inverse of it, right? Unyielding forms. Select in your opponent's shooting phase or fight phase, so just the good stuff. Necron's vehicle mounted and the Necron's vehicle excluding Titanic and mounted. If the strength is greater than your toughness, -1 to wound. This is going to combo, and I'm going to allude to it again to Chrono Shift. It shifting the math from an attack to kill a DDA to maybe a 10% chance to kill a DDA means you have a 10% chance to just keep your DDA. -1 to wound, super good. Lancer shoots at you. I don't know. You're not going to do damage. I don't think you're doing damage. You're not going to roll 4s. I'm going to roll 4s. It's very good. It's just super efficient.
Well, and it covers the major weakness.
Also,
like I said,
continues to play into what I talked about before about the Silent King. No, go ahead.
So the biggest problem I have with a lot of the chassis for Necrons, a lot of the vehicle chassis, is that they have middling toughness. They have very high wounds and all the 4+ invulnerable save, but their toughness is usually lower on the end of the scales than their contemporaries like a Lehman Russ. But this completely covers for that downfall. So many times people are going to be wounding you on 4s into a 4+ with possibly -1 damage, and of course you get wounds back for living metal. So this is just disgusting. All right. Up next, we have Chrono Shift, which is 1 CP.
It's great. It gives you that.
We're just going to take a pause here, Joshua, because I think we've got some connection issues.
Yes. I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry. This is the editor mark. Let's restart back at unyielding forms, because I don't think you caught anything of what I was saying.
I did absolutely not. Did you catch what I was saying about? We'll start again.
Yeah, in and out. Right. Give me like 2 seconds. I might weirdly swap to my phone. I don't know why this is being weird.
No worries. I'll pause. 3, 2, 1.
Back to unyielding forms. I'll let the just in case the editor wants to fix that little connection issue we had. Basically, it's -1 to wound if the strength is greater than your toughness. Great recipient for the Silent King. It lets him truly become he feeds into that same game plan of him walking into melee and going, I don't know, strength 11 isn't real.
It being 1 CP, of course, thank God you can't use it on Titanic, or else T-Volts would be, back in vogue. But Necron vehicles, Necron mounted. I mean, so heavy destroyers sit at the toughness 6 breakpoint.
Yes, they do. And a 6-man is something that you are legally allowed to take. Same as Locust Heavy Destroyers. Both are super good recipients. It kind of plays into this global idea of the detachment of playing a cat and mouse game with like trying to shift the math to be slightly in your favor, whether it be, a little bit harder to kill than it should be, making one too many 4-ups than you would expect.
Yeah.
And then just being horrendously punished both through army rule of healing and then the stratagem we're going to get to in a minute, which is the best stratagem called Chrono Shift. It really makes the cat and mouse games really in your favor, which ends in a play pattern of your opponents being forced to send in ways that they usually don't like. And then you kind of play that, all right, you're all inning, how do I respond? And then that's almost always a good place because you get the strike first.
And I don't know if the editor's going to get this, but it really covers for one of the major downsides of most of the vehicle chassis, which is that they have a 4-up invulnerable save, of course, which is kind of busted at some levels. And then they have above average wounds, but they usually have below average toughness, especially on things like the DDAs compared to something like a Lehman Russ, which is about the same amount of points. But this completely makes up for it. And so often people will be firing, las cannon equivalents that'll be wounding on 4s into a 4-up invul into a chassis that can heal itself. Like, it is kind of just one of the over-the-top mechanics of this detachment.
Yeah. No.
Tell us about this Besto one, this Chrono Shift.
All right, Chrono Shift. 1 CP. For what it's worth, all these stratagems are 1 CP because, Josh Roberts loves us. Us Josh has got to stick together. So when is your movement phase, and it's just after your keyword, in this case Necron's vehicle or mounted, excluding Titanic units, just after they have been shot, essentially. I'm sorry, it's not Chrono Shift. That is it's called reactive reposition. My brain just swapped the 2 in my arm. We're gonna move to reactive reposition because that's what I'm thinking of right now, and it's the 6th one, but don't worry about that. So it's in the shooting phase, just after you've been shot. Basically, this is a bonus if you are the keyword, and it is an effect for everyone. If you are the keyword, you are going to just flat move 6. You are going to move 6 with your Locust Destroyers. You're going to move 6 with your Locust Heavies. You're going to move 6 with your DDAs. And most importantly, you're going to move 6 with your Silent King when he gets shot. And it really just means that if you pop out on the thin line and you go bang, 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 I shoot my DDA or my Silent King or my Locusts at you. If you don't respond with enough to kill me, I'm not going to move. If you respond with enough to kill me, I'm going to move after the first shot behind the thing, and then I'm going to pop out all my guns and kill you. And
it's so good. So very, very good.
And it doesn't, the crazy thing is, it works on Wraiths. It works on Wraiths and Catan. And if you do your normal, Canoptic Chord or Awakened play pattern, if you put some Wraiths on the center objective, you string back a little bit and you go, I hope no one ever comes to this point. And then someone comes out and goes, well, I'm going to shoot you, bucko. And then they shoot you and you go, oh man, I lost 2 Wraiths. Let's just reactive move the Wraiths behind the wall now. And I've lost none. And once again, it's that same play pattern of you must commit more. You have to kill it by 150%. Otherwise, you don't spend the stratagem.
And what really annoys me about this stratagem is that when you couple this with a -1 to wound, should they put Oath on the Silent King and bring out their, 6 Devastator Centurions in Vanguard or whatever, and they're going to hit on 2s, re-rolling, and then they're going to wound on 4s because of the -1 to wound, then you can still buck out before their 6 Inceptors go as well. Now, there are some things that have made this stratagem even better. The fact that, because what I would usually do if something like this was going to happen is that I would use something like Inceptors and I'd 3-inch Deep Strike behind you to stop and block your reactive move. Can't do that anymore. It's 6 inches. It's going to be so much harder to do that. In addition, so many of the other one dunk kill Silent King mechanics that were in the game, every army was trying to take one of them because they wanted to kill Catan easily. I'm talking about things like Eradicators. I'm talking things like Morven Vile's unit as well, which is consistently gone up in points every other time. Things that will come on and just single dunk stuff like the Silent King with -1 to wound, just aren't seeing anywhere near as much play. And so this has only gotten even better and better in the meta.
I mean, with Codex compliant, Marines being +1 to wound, it really disincentivizes a lot of play patterns of Death Stars. which were already somewhat falling out of vogue.
Correct.
It is very good. And the last little piece of tech that I like to use sometimes, and this is more prevalent in like a double Wraith build or like a more heavy Catan build, is if someone doesn't do the math right, or they low roll, because you have full information when you use the stratagem, and low roll, and they just don't do that any damage. You're like, oh, cool. You can reactive reposition, and you can just move straight at them.
You can just go closer.
You press the Phantasm button, and you go 6 inches this way towards them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had, I think so far, 3 games versus Tau, and every game that 2 of the 3 games they conceded on turn 2 because they spent 10 minutes trying to figure out how to solve the Wraith problem in the center, and one person overcommitted, the other person undercommitted. In both cases, they were punished. When they overcommitted, I just left, and they went, well, this feels awful. And when they undercommitted, I went, well, I guess your whole army is getting tagged next turn, and you're Kayun, so that doesn't sound good for you. And it's an absolute nightmare to deal with as an opponent, because like the Necron player will have all the power with knowledge. The only version of reactive move that's better than this, in my opinion, is Phantasm. That's the only one. Oh no, am I going out again? Or is it you, Adam? Well, to all the boys and girls at home, we're doing our best here at I'm all alone now.
Apologies, Josh. I dropped. Very unusual thing to happen. Where did we leave off? We finished up on reactive reposition. Let's go back to where we were. Okay, chrono shift, 1 CP in your movement phase, 1 vehicle or mounted unit from your army, auto advance 6.
Oh, it's just great, man. Bringers of Flames, I hardly knew you.
Go straight to hell.
You're so fast. Your DBAs move 14 or rather 16. It's 14, and then you pivot is the real answer most of the time.
Yeah, correct.
But that pivot sometimes gets you more movement than 16, so it evens out. You know,
it does.
When in Rome, it's great. 1 CP 6, super good stratagem, and it just makes certain plays just happen. And you're like, I don't know, I'm not gonna roll 6. I'm just gonna go contest primary.
Exactly right. Up next, Dimensional Tunnel, which is 1 CP in your movement phase, 1 Necron's vehicle, Necron's mounted unit from your army. Go through walls and models. So it's your movement phase and not the charge phase. You're not charging through walls and past models, but to the end of the phase, models in your unit can move horizontally through models and terrain features.
Gosh, you know what's so sad to me is just how much worse the stratagem is versus Chaos Knights. Chaos Knights really are the most broken army in the game, you know.
let the Chaos Knights have one good thing, okay? Let them have one nice thing. It's essentially all they've got right now.
No, this is busted. This is great.
This is so good, man.
This unironically gives more movement than auto advance 6. Just it does.
Absolutely does. You just don't have to worry about pivoting and going around walls and stuff. You just 1 CP go straight through.
It just works. You can do it. You can fall back too, for what it's worth. You can fall back behind a wall if you're like stuck against walls and models, and you're like, oh, I can't leave. Just leave. Just do it.
Yeah.
And then you fall back and shoot.
Yeah, there's no pinning, there's no nothing. It doesn't say when you do a normal move. So this can be a fallback move, this can be an advanced move. It's just when you move, it can move through, no problems. So you can really get out of traps. There's no point trying to tri-point or trap Necron vehicles and try and, force a desperate escape. There's no point trying to do any of that stuff anymore, which is very frustrating. I'm very thankful they don't have like a captain or a hive tyrant equivalent that allows you to use the same stratagem, again, because that would be so not good. Not good.
The only thing that's a little bit like sad is, the only thing that's missing from this detachment is like a melee vehicle that can walk through walls. But like,
my heart bleeds for you, mate. My heart bleeds for you. Legions of 40k players are pulling out their small violins as we speak.
I know. Thank you. Honestly, I appreciate your support in these trying times.
All right. Tell us about Endless Servitude.
Endless Servitude is the one that I probably use the least. It's best in the Catan version of the Catan builds, and it is end your fight phase. 1 Necron unit from your army within range of an objective marker that you control. So both of those, there's 2 stipulations on it. The control thing is the one that's the most annoying, because sometimes you fight a thing and you don't kill it, and you're like, I guess I don't heal. And in the effect is your unit reanimation protocols activate, so you heal. It's the only way now to get a Catan to heal for 66 in a battle round, and
You mean 63? Sorry. Yeah.
Or oh, yeah, 63.
66.
Oh yeah, no, 63. It's Void Dragon, 2d3 Nero Reanimator twice, and then Technomancer heal and a Void Dragon suck heal is the way, for what it's worth. It's fun. It makes the once again. There's a triple Catan build that's kind of interesting that just plays if you don't kill them at any point, you don't do any damage to them, which is kind of interesting. The Settlers of Catan. Thus saying once again, this detachment is better for every single other way to play Necrons, which is a bit of a design flaw than the previous versions, but that is neither here nor there.
It is funny that Endless Servitude, which is a perfectly serviceable stratagem, is the stinker of this entire detachment. Like, every enhancement is takeable, every stratagem is usable, except for that one. That's the one you tell your opponent about and then use like once in a blue moon.
Yeah, so, I go, sometimes it's relevant, and I'm like, oh, neat. I'll like do this to like hold a point, and that's nice, right? Because I'll like have a Wraith unit strung out, and then he double heals and he takes a point.
Yeah, exactly right.
But like it you just need CP so much for these other stratagems, and then you do legally have to hold a CP to reroll number of shots on a DDA. Just it's in the contract when you buy a Necron Combat Patrol. So you kind of just can't afford to do it, even when you're running Imotech, which I think that most builds should run Imotech.
I was literally going to bring this up in part 2, but I think every single Star Shatter list is an Imotech list, just because it's going to be so CP thirsty.
I think that there is a real reason to not run him, but he just keeps ending up his way into my lists. So take that for what you will. He's pretty darn good. Moving through walls and auto advancing 6 and just having the ability to do that turn 1 and just saying, hey, it's not a roll, I just do this, you have to pre-measure it, is powerful.
Absolutely is. And there are so many play patterns that I really like with these builds that I'm disgusted to verse on the table. Like, I love the idea of a single annihilation barge, single annihilation whatever it is, because sorry.
Yeah, you correct. That's a correct name.
Yeah. Just one. Because on turn 1, you give it -1 damage, shoot it through a wall on the middle objective, and be like, you have to expose your good stuff early. Your opponent has to expose their heavy hitters early, and then you have like triple DDA and SK to go and try and pick those things up in the response. And just forcing that like issue on your opponent early, I feel like it's a great way as a great, very potent thing to do. And it's 105 points to do that play. It costs you nothing to pull this off. And then of course, you can reactive move away out of line of sight if they expose way too much or not enough, and you can -1 to wound on that same thing. But of course, you have to have a 2 CP at turn 1, which means Imotech to me. But that is the conclusion of the review of this thing, and it is. I mean, we all Ironstorm was busto for the first kind of 3 to 6 months that it came out, and this thing is like Ironstorm plus.
Yeah,
but
it's very good.
But without some of the key utility things that Ironstorm had. Like, Ironstorm was able to put in legitimate countercharge in their arsenals. Like, you would have repulsor executioners with 5 sword brethren and stuff inside them, and all the extra multi-melters and all that stuff you get for being Black Templars in an Ironstorm. This kind of has higher ceilings for damage than that army. At some breakpoints, and higher durability at some breakpoints as well. But it's about min-maxing those breakpoints whilst also playing an army that is ostensibly wielding casino cannons.
Yeah, and I think that the note that I'm gonna end on for all the Necron boys and girls listening at home, the play pattern that you really want to focus on is to make obviously standing on objectives is good for you. That is, when your opponent stands on them, you're very happy. So you want to build a list that forces them to do that, because everyone's going to hear you when you tell them your detachment and you say what it does, and they go, oh, I'm not going to stand on those. So you need to force the issue, and you totally can do that.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts about the Shatterstar, which we're going to go over in part 2, but we have to rate this detachment, my man. So out of 10 as a Necron player, and speaking for all Necron players, how happy are you and should they be with this detachment out of 10?
I mean, Santa came to town tonight. It's very, very good. Out of 10, this is for me, this is my favorite way to play the game. I've always loved like medium-sized tanks shooting castles and like being big chunky gun. I love our big barges. That's what I started playing with basically. And for me, this is like a 9. This is super great. This is a strong competitive attachment that has like a bunch of good rules. The only thing, honestly, that the biggest gripe that I have with it is that it is a little too good, if that makes sense. Not that it's like too strong in the meta, because that's more to do with how the units are pointed than how the rules work. But it does the things the other detachments are trying to do just slightly more efficiently, which means no matter how units are pointed, it's still going to be like slightly more efficient in most cases than the other ones. And which leads to a negative play pattern of, well, why not just play Star Shatter?
Correct. You compare this to the Destroyer Cult one, the Assimilation Legion, whatever, and you're like, well, this does more for mounted models than that one does.
Ironically, I run more Locust Destroyers in this than I do in my Annihilation.
100%. And why wouldn't you? It does so much more for them.
You want to know what my very first? I did 3 games when they came out, and I just took a Phalanx list that I had, an Awaken list that I had, and a Court list that I had, and I just ran those lists point for point. And I'm not gonna lie, I think they perform better.
Yeah, wild and disgusting. Wild and disgusting, mate. But anyway, where do you think this ranks just as a detachment in the competitive tier list?
I mean, I think that this is going to turn us into the 4th to 7th-ish best army in the game. Really, the last little bit's kind of fluxy in my head. I need more testing data. I think that Vanguard, Iron Storm, Guard are like solidly above us for sure. And I think in the same like price range, we have Admech, NIDS, CSM, maybe GSC and Orcs too. I don't have enough. They're ones I am not sure about because I don't have the playtest data. But like that's kind of like where I'm feeling out the top scope of the meta to be right now. And obviously someone's going to come in with some like crazy build and like blow us all out, custom the worlds, but like that's what feels very strong to me. So we're very well positioned. I think that my meta call is that we're gonna top 16 be like 3 of the top 16 at LBO.
Wow, 3 of the top 16. That's big. I like that. I would say this is an A to an A+ tier detachment. There are a couple of holes here. There isn't any defense to mortal wounds, so you kind of priced into taking a Canoptic Spider, which you kind of wanted to do anyway to give feel no pains to your models, which also doubles down with the healing, with the minus to wound, etc. But because you're forced into doing that, there are a couple of armies that can just like dunk on this. I don't think you struggle with Tsons, but Magnus is one of the only things in the game that will legitimately in like one turn a Silent King potentially. So there is that, and just vibed into like not enough dev wound protection. And so I do think there are a couple of things here for people to exploit, and we're going to go over and record those over on part 2. So hopefully you will join us. That is the end of the episode. Stay tuned for another wonderful song from my brother's band, and hopefully you guys are all enjoying that, as that continues to be the flavor of the show or the outros for a bit. But my dude, time to call your shot. Where are you going to get an LVO? Like point Babe Ruth off into it. Where are you going to finish?
Maybe I'm getting first.
Oh yeah, I love to hear it, man.
What are you talking about, baby? Come on now. What'd you ask? You're gonna
Yeah, good. That's the whole reason I ask. So you can call your shot. And Dory, I'll be commentating, and when you don't get first, I will let the world know.
Look, I'll let you buy me the drink for when I lose too. That works.
Would be my pleasure, mate. Anyway, that is us all done for this part 1. Come and join us over on part 2. Hope you've enjoyed this episode for the week, the second week of the Grotmas detachment review. We're going to keep rolling these, baby. We're going to keep going, get them all reviewed in the bank. And thank you very much for all your incredible support. This will be the episode before Christmas as well. So Merry Christmas to all of you. Thank you for your amazing support. One more episode before we finish up this 2024. And Joshua, thanks very much.
I know you spent the last 40 years trying to figure out just who you are. Left wondering why you're still wondering about the questions you thought you'd answered. What do you have left to lose? Love-hate relationship with the freedom to choose. Take a risk. you keep letting in. Every time you